The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time there came to Jesus some Sadducees, those who say that there is no resurrection. And they asked him a question, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, having a wife but no children, the man must take the wife and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first took a wife and died without children, and the second and the third took her, and likewise all 7 left no children and died. Afterwards the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had her as wife." And Jesus said to them, "The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are accounted worthy to attain to that age and to the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, for they cannot die anymore, because they are equal to angels and are sons and daughters of God, being sons and daughters of the resurrection. But that the dead are raised, even Moses showed in the passage about the bush, where he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now he is not God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him." And some of the scribes answered, "Teacher, you have spoken well," for they no longer dared to ask him any question. The Gospel of the Lord. Glory to Jesus. The Lord has given us a lot of wisdom by which we are to live fulfilled lives, in order for us not to be consigned into the dimension of lower animals. He has fitted us with a certain level of intellectual capacity. What we call common sense nowadays, unfortunately, is not common, because there is a fight against common sense. Common sense means that general capacity for the human person to think as a human being. The general capacity for the human person to think as a human being. Of course, a human being created in God's image and likeness. You know, today we have a particularly stunning saint, Saint Catherine of Alexandria, who was a virgin and was eventually killed. Saint Catherine of Alexandria was born into a noble family. In other words, she would have been probably part of the empire's leaders. You know, they are all always the same, the governors, the emperors, and so on and so forth. So she was of noble birth. And then she grew in the court where she was taught. So anyone who was born of noble birth would always have the opportunity for education. But she wasn't just only educated, she was naturally gifted. But however, at the age of 14, this little girl had a vision of the Blessed Virgin Mary and Jesus, and eventually decided to become a Christian. Then it was wrong to be a Christian. It was against the law of the empire to be a Christian. This was the period of great persecution, and the emperor on ground then was Maxentus, who himself had inaugurated a fierce persecution. This young girl went to the emperor to challenge the emperor's cruelty against Christians. Now she made use of lots of arguments. Whatever it was, the arguments were, it was clear that she made use of very intelligent arguments that the emperor himself became embarrassed and summoned 50 philosophers to fool the girl. But the young girl, the youth, stood the entire 50 philosophers, both the elderly and the young of them, and put them underneath her feet. Yes, she had a foundation in education, and she had been groomed, but she has this special gift. When the Lord Jesus comes into a person, even without education, you will speak sense. Even without education, you will speak wisdom. Even without education, you will bring down the hordes of intelligent people that say they have gone to school. Professors will become like primary school pupils before them. Those who claim to be intelligent will become foolish in their sight. Just as the Lord Jesus Christ fooled the Sadducees, who said there was no resurrection. I mean, he just gave them few arguments and nobody dared to open their mouth. They were all silenced. They came with their own human wisdom. Look at the human wisdom they came with. Always very foolish. What they call wisdom, always very foolish. You know, making use of the man who got married to a wife and didn't bear children. And then it's customary, the brother who married the wife and bear children in the name of the brother who had died. And they said all 7 did the same. They all died. The woman herself died. So how does that now prove that there is no spirit world? How does that even prove there is no spirit world? And then, because they are bringing a theoretical argument that does not have value. Since she has gotten married to all, if they do marry in the spirit world, one person will take her. Or the 7 persons will take her. Don't we have many men marrying one woman in this world? Yes, we have many men dating one woman. We have many men marrying one woman in some cultures. But does this say, can this argue that there is no spirit world? It was a very foolish argument. Jesus didn't want to call them foolish. He didn't want to emphasize how foolish they were. He merely just gave them the proof that there is a spirit world and quoted from their own scriptures the statement of Moses himself. When Moses received the beatific vision of God, and God describing himself, I'm the God of Isaac, I'm the God of Jacob. And he says, God is not the God of the dead or the living. The wisdom of the Lord Jesus Christ elevates the intellect of an average person. Not to talk of a girl who herself had actually gone through education. And so Jesus added to her life, and she was no match for over 50 professors who came to want to argue with her. The humiliation of Maxentus led him to the next grade of foolishness and started torturing the girl. During the period of being tortured, she proclaimed herself to be a Christian, which was forbidden. She proclaimed herself to be a Christian, not only a Christian, but a virgin married to Jesus Christ. And that was how they condemned her to death. And they were to kill her by a wheel that has spike, a very heavy wheel that has spike. They will roll it over the person, the wheel will pierce into the spine and the vertebrae of the person and destroy the person. But she just touched the wheel and every single thing about the wheel fell off and got destroyed. Eventually they killed her by removing her head. What wrong has she done? My dear brothers and sisters, the first reading of today concentrated so very much continuously as we have had from the beginning of this week, the Maccabean Revolution. We must have this in mind. This is the time to stand and fight for truth, to stand and fight for justice. This is the time to stand and fight for light and dispel darkness. This is the time to fight against those who proclaim evil as good and good as evil. In your family, in your place of work, in your market, do not allow a foolish statement go unanswered. Do not allow a fool speak loudly and prominently by your side without making sure that the fool understands that the statement made is foolish. It is no longer courtesy to say that everyone has the right to speak. Everyone has the right to speak only wisely because we are human beings and we have not been given the opportunity for foolishness. So that courtesy that is being used as a deceptive foundation for accepting foolishness, for incorporating foolishness, for compromising with foolishness, and eventually enthroning foolishness cannot stand. It is the reason why we are where we are today, because we allowed foolishness to begin germinating and we didn't crush it until it grew and became taller than us. And so every wise person in Nigeria today appear to be foolish. And the most foolish of us are the ones that are dictating how we are to use our wisdom. It is a sorry case, but this can be happening in your family, it can be happening in the little group you are in, it can be happening in your church, it can be happening amongst your colleague, in the place of work, it can be happening in many places. If you do not kill foolishness, you yourself are dead, because the aim of foolishness is to destroy the life of grace and the life of wisdom that God has put in us from the very moment He created us as human beings in the first place. We have a lot to do. And so for you, our little children who are to be baptized, you, the parents who are brought to them here for baptism, have a serious responsibility. These children are to be baptized on the foundation of truth, the truth that have been inaugurated by Jesus Himself. There is no space for foolishness. When you see this child express weakness in every other sphere, of course, the child can be made strengthened. But when the child is expressing foolishness, you must crush that foolishness by every means necessary and save the child from the menace of stupidity that had become so very much widespread. Protect your child from foolishness. Gift your child with the blessings of wisdom. Expose your child to wise people, to wise elderly people, to the priests of the church. Expose your child to doing things in the church. Expose your child to laboring in the church. These little children that have been entrusted to you are meant for only one goal. That goal is heaven. These children are innocent now. Look at them. There is nothing like hellfire in them. Whatever will make any one of these children get into hellfire, your hands will be fingered in it. You, the parent, would have a hand in it. Either by abandoning this child or not feeding the child with the truth that the child needs to be able to form a conscience, or leaving this child under the influences of very terrible attitudes. These are happening in society today. Lots of children are handling phones, and the phones are unguided. The phones are naked, open to every form of sexual immorality, of pornography. Elder brothers, elder sisters will use the phone for that rubbish. They drop it. The little children will pick it and they continue from where the elders stop. A lot of immorality everywhere. You must make it your goal to ensure these children remain pure the way they are now as they grow up. When you would have finished your own work of making them pure, whatever now happens, God will not hold you responsible. But as long as these children are under your authority currently, you determine their food, the school they will go, you determine the clothes they wear, you determine everything. You would also determine that these children become spiritually fit for the kingdom of heaven.